All right.
Live.
Loaded bases. Francisco Castro. How's it going?
It's going well, man. It's going well. Glad we can do this. It's trippy because it's 8 o'clock where you're at, 10 o'clock here. So I'm all casual, just chilling.
Yeah, it's I've actually been like on my computer for the past hour, just waiting to hop on a podcast because I haven't recorded in this new studio yet. So you are the first one.
Oh no, it looks good. It looks really good. It makes. I
Hey,
mean,
I
I
appreciate it.
gotta, I gotta pimp mine out a little bit more. I still got work to do.
Dude, you have I do like yours, honestly. It's clean.
Yeah, I gotta get more foam panels. I want to get the whole wall done. Eventually, I need to get that side done as well, so that when I have multiple camera angles and whatnot, get it all in there. But yeah,
Well, yeah,
man.
because you mentioned camera angles. So what do you do? What's your role?
Yeah, well, I do a lot of things. Like professionally, I actually work at a hospital. I'm in education.
Nice.
Um, then on the baseball side of things, I've been podcasting. You've been on my podcast. I
Yep.
did some writing. I have a blog that I started, and then I only did about 4 or 5 articles, and then my wife and I had our third kid, so we were like, I need to put some things on hold. So I put that on hold.
Yeah.
Kept up with the YouTube channel. Kept up with the podcast. But I put that on the back burner for now. I think eventually I want to get that, back and rolling in action and whatnot. But yeah, man, just podcasting, content creating,
Yeah.
just doing whatever I can to do just to get that baseball, that extra dose of baseball, because that's
Yeah.
one thing that I really enjoy. Since a kid, baseball's been like my passion. You played, I didn't have the skill, so that's why my mom put me in orchestra.
Dude, I was in
I
orchestra
was-
that
I play the
way back
cello,
in the
dude.
day.
Yeah,
Dude,
dude, I
me
play.
too. I played the
Really?
cello.
Oh, yeah. All right, we'll have to coordinate something one time, sometime.
Well, I mean,
Do a little jam
I
session on the
don't, I
cello.
don't, I don't still play. I,
I haven't
I,
touched it in years,
I
but
had to play in fourth grade. We had to do that like for a string instrument, and then in fifth
yeah,
grade we had to do band. It was either band or choir. And I definitely chose the band route.
yeah, dude. No, I played cello for like 10 years, dude. It
Oh
was
damn!
yeah, from like I want to say like first grade till almost like graduated from high school, dude. So I played a good chunk of time playing the cellos and orchestras and whatnot. Yeah, man,
That's.
it was all right.
CG, it's like the random facts like that are like the way to
Yeah,
go.
yeah. I mean, I was on a swim team too. That was like that was my sports. Like I was on a swim
Hmm.
team for our city. I did soccer as a kid. Yeah, but I did like little league for like 4 years in baseball,
Yeah.
and then that was about it. Like it never advanced further than that.
So it never like advanced further than that. Like, so how I guess how did you get into like baseball podcasting? I mean, like, did you want to start a podcast and then figure out like, oh yeah, like let's talk about baseball, or was it just like a
Dude,
natural
baseball's
thing?
been in my blood since a kid. My dad was born in Puerto Rico. Like Puerto
Hmm.
Ricans, like we love our baseball. That's
Oh
like our
yes, you
national
do.
pastime. And like there's so many. That's what's great about, not to like veer off topic, but like side note, like there's so many good
Yeah.
young like Latin talent
Yes,
in
sir.
baseball in the game, and a lot of them from Puerto Rico. So that's super cool. So yeah, so my dad, diehard Yankees fan. He born in
Ooh,
Puerto Rico, moved to New York, was a huge Yankees fan. Ended up moving to California, and then he switched his allegiances to the Oakland Athletics. At the
good
time,
man.
yeah, at the time they were dominating baseball. They were just crushing it, winning a couple World Series. Got won one, got to another.
Yeah,
Yeah, so he was a big fan. Then yeah, we had season tickets growing up. Like that was it, man. Our summers were in baseball
damn,
games. That was
dude,
it.
that would be so much fun. Like as a kid,
Yeah.
dude, just going like to all the games.
hmm Yeah, for sure. Like every Wednesday, we'd be like, all right, they used to have these like dollar Wednesdays or something. So
Hmm.
we'd go there, get a hot dog for $1, and yeah, man, it was cool. So that's growing up. Like we did that, and then when I was in college, I had a family friend who worked in the front office, or not the front office, but the box office. So
Hmm.
she would give us free tickets whenever we wanted them. So for a couple years, all I had to do was just tell her like, hey, I need 3 4 tickets, and then I became the plug for my friends in college.
Oh
Like whenever
wow,
we just wanted to chill at a baseball game, yeah, just
you
tell
can
her like,
charge
hey.
money for that.
Nah, I
Like,
mean, I,
yeah,
I should
dude,
have. In like
come on
retrospect, I
now.
should have, man. I was in hustle. I didn't have that hustle mentality back then. But yeah, so it was tight. Like those are some fun years. I mean, the A's sucked at that time, but it was still cool just to chill, at a game.
Oh,
Not have to pay for anything.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. So
See,
then
that was yeah, dude. Like, so baseball growing up, college, but dude, like you okay, like so after like all my years like playing, it was baseball is kind of more fun not playing.
hmm,
That's I learned that. It was a weird thing, but like once baseball was like like taken from me, and then I had to like change it up, and then
yeah.
like you should look at it like from like from like a different aspect.
Yeah, you see a different perspective on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and to answer your question, kind of like a long way answer that to get
Yeah.
into podcasting, like I had no idea about I mean, I knew what a podcast was, obviously.
Yeah.
I never really I listened to a couple sports ones, and that was about it. And I had no idea of wanting to start a podcast
Yeah.
until last year, the beginning, like maybe a month before the season started. A buddy of mine said, "Hey, do you want to be in my podcast for a couple episodes and just discuss like preview each division?" So we went AL, NL, we went every division. We just previewed it for on his podcast, and
Mhm.
he's a Brewers fan as well. So we just started doing that. And I'm like, dang, this is pretty dope. Like, this is actually pretty fun. I started looking forward to it. Bought a mic. I'm like, why don't I just do this myself? Like,
Yeah.
it's cool being on someone else's podcast. Is dope. Just being able to talk sports, but why not do it myself? And have people come on, talk to
Exactly.
me, and then through that, I've been able to have a ton of cool guests and ton of cool interviews that I've had on here. And
You've had
uh,
a lot.
yeah, and just through this, I appreciate that. I mean, through this, I've just been able to kind of grow. Like, I had no talent of being able to talk. I'd never talked on the mic before. I never like interviewed people. But people always said you got a voice for talking. So I'm like, all right, cool. Like I'll go ahead and start doing that. So that's kind of how it all went about. Like legitimately, I just went on Twitter, like, yo, who wants to start a podcast with me? And then I got a couple of people, and through like the time, most of them dropped off and or had other things to do that took their time. And I'm like, well, you know what, I'm like deep in this thing, like I'm not just trying to do this for a one day thing and then kind of forget about it. Like I eat, drink, sleep, baseball. So it's
Yeah.
kind of my outlet here.
See, yeah, no, mine was kind of like the same thing. It was I would say because the beginning of quarantine, and say like is when baseball like straight like ended. I was I had no idea like what to do, and so I wanted to bring it to me. So that's kind of like how I mean like at the time like pretty much like married to the game. So
Hmm.
what do? Start a podcast. Every,
Dude, yeah, that's
everyone
it.
and anyone started a podcast. That was like the time. That's it. Because when 2020, yeah, pretty much like in 2020, everyone started it.
It started popping off. Everyone's like, I can
Yep.
talk on the. Everyone started a YouTube channel, started a podcast. It's easy to start a podcast though. If you
It's
just
honestly it's simple.
It is. It is. That's crazy. But I heard this. I can't remember what statistic it was or how accurate it is, but I think like a 70% or 80% of people drop off after like 7 or 8 episodes. So
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it's easy to start a podcast. It's just that consistent like
get
dedication to putting out content, and
yep.
not just any kind of content, like content that people want to hear. Like anybody can just talk on a mic, but if if it's not interesting
You
or whatever,
you
it's
got to
just like,
separate yourself like from
yeah,
like everyone and their mom. Like
yeah,
I mean because like being a podcaster, like I feel like it's a very like
hmm,
I guess like the industry for it. So you
hmm,
got to like find your niche of like how to do that.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
And then and I mean like is yours like okay, like so when was your start date?
Oh God.
Like when did you
It was
publish your
like
first episode?
2 weeks before 2 weeks before the opening day of baseball. So
Oh
I
yeah. Oh yeah, like of this year, right?
yep, yeah. So I
Okay.
literally it hasn't been a full year yet.
Yeah, I've
So
had
we've gone one full
the
baseball season. That's it.
1.5. I guess we'll
Oh,
say that
dope. That's awesome.
because 2020 was I'll call it a half a season.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, so I
yeah,
probably started in like late February.
hell yeah. Well, yeah, because you okay, like so what's your podcast called?
Oh yeah, for sure. So my podcast is
You
the
gotta
Walkin
plug
Off.
it in, bud.
Yeah, the
You
Walkin
gotta
Off
plug it in.
podcast. Yeah, Walkin Off podcast YouTube channel, podcast. We focus mostly on the Brewers,
Okay,
but we have
stop. Why do you talk about the Brewers?
because
That's
the Cubs suck, man. Why am I gonna talk about
what?
that? you know
Man,
how
dude, you are kicked off of this podcast,
you
dude.
know how to where's my Brewers flag? I don't want to
Okay,
mess up
so
myself. I got my flag out
okay,
there.
so Dad a Yankee,
Yeah.
you an A's.
Yeah, my whole family are diehard. Right. That's
So
a trip.
why
Yeah.
Brewers?
So I grew up in California.
Yep,
So when my dad, I was born in Oakland. I cheer for the Raiders. I cheer for the Warriors.
yep,
I cheer for the Oakland A's. Honestly, it's still to this day, like they're my like 1A to my 1B with the Brewers. Like they're my team. Although that team is just really a joke at times with the
yeah.
um like small market team where like you're in the Bay Area. How are you a small market team?
That's what I'm saying.
You can't play that game with me as a fan. Like we're seeing the heartbreak and all that time, and then trades after trades after trades. Anyway, that's
They
not
get annoying.
that's yeah, it's for sure, and that's a conversation for another time. But moving to Wisconsin like 5-6 years ago. When I started a podcast last year, I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not going to cover a team that's in a whole different state. I know you're a Cubs fan, but your podcast isn't like Cubs focused, right?
Oh no, no.
So
I'm. If I had to be biased, I mean, 100% Cubs.
yeah,
But then it would be like Cubs and Mariners, like only because I live here.
right. So that's kind of how it is for me with the Brewers. So it's like Oakland because that's like my family. Like all my sisters are still season ticket holders. Although I think this year, with everything going on, I don't think they're renewing their season tickets. But
Ooh,
um, yeah. So I'm not going to cover a team in a whole different state because if I go to the games, I want to be able to talk about it on my podcast. If I interview people from the local radio, and I've had local radio guests on my podcast, like I don't want to. It's just easier and it makes sense. And plus, the Brewers are a fun team. I've watched them for the last couple of years. I've gone to games. Like that's just kind of that's just the team that I've been cheering for
yeah,
alongside of the A's. And they're a really fun team. Like this past year, like I mean, they could have won it all. We're not gonna go into that right now. But yeah, so that was my mindset, really. Like I'm like, I don't want to cover a team that's in a whole different state. So
yeah,
that's why I kind of went the route of the Brewers. If I still lived in California, I if I was going to even do podcasting, who knows, then I probably would talk about Oakland. It'd be hard to talk about, but I would do it. But just being here in Madison, about 45 minutes from the stadium in Milwaukee, it's convenient and it's fun. And yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of the way it is.
yeah. It's no, like I can understand that because I mean it's like you kind of have to like market yourself.
Yeah.
So you have to stay like within the area. I mean, like
Yeah.
I mean was like 'cause I live 2 hours away from Seattle,
Mhm.
and it like it's hard not to talk about the games that you go to and watch.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
What was like because it's very interesting, just I guess the way that like people like start their podcast like for their like certain reasons.
Yeah.
And yours is like all over the place. I love
It
it.
is. It is, to be honest. Like I'm very kind of spur of the moment. Like one day I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? I'm just gonna do this, and then I kind of just go all in. That's kind of how I am. So I just thought, hey, I'm gonna do a podcast, and then I went all in. Like bought the mic, got some lights. The camera that this is on is not my normal camera, so the quality isn't as good. But um, that's I try to do things to make the production look good.
Yeah.
And then literally I just started messaging people like, hey, you want to come on the podcast?
Yep.
And a lot of no's, a lot of no answers, but a couple yeses. And like I said, I who I've had on my podcast. Like it's been kind of cool.
I mean, because you get a lot of amazing guests. Like you get like broadcasters,
Mm-hmm.
writers.
Mm-hmm.
I have yet to actually talk to a sports writer.
I got you, man.
Yeah, dude.
I'll help it out.
I would love to have like a sports writer like on my podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've had Jeff Blum, the video play-by-play for the Houston Astros, came on, talked about the Astros and the potentially Astros Brewers World Series that didn't pan out. The Astros did their part. The Brewers did not do their part. I had Andre Knott on. He is the he's a sideline reporter for the Cleveland Browns, but he also covers the Cleveland Indians as their in-stadium reporter. So I've had him on, talked about the Indians and their pitching staff, and that was right after the Brewers no-hit the Indians. So it was kind of fun to get his opinion because he was there watching it live. and kind of get his reaction, hear what the players and how they reacted to him when he was
Yeah.
asking them about the Brewers and our pitching staff. Yeah, man, it's the opportunity to talk to people that you never thought you would have been able to talk to,
Exactly. Well,
it's
well,
kind of
because we're just
motivation
like
just to keep
normal
going.
people. We're just like we're
Yeah,
baseball fans, and we're just trying to pretty much stay like within the game.
yeah.
And it's like never like 2 years ago. I mean, like if I thought that I'd be doing this now, I would I would say that I'm an idiot because there's no way in
Mhm.
hell like that I'd be talking to people like that.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I the first time I got my first guest, I was like, "Really? Yes?" I was like, it was a former
Yeah.
player. Former player was my first and current broadcaster. It was my first guest, and I'm like, "Wow, okay." Uh, I started like watching all these YouTube videos on how to interview somebody. I'm like, I have no idea.
Yep.
I had no idea
Same,
I had no
same.
idea what to do. So I'm like, man, I gotta get this right. Like, I don't want to screw up my first interview.
That's
And then it just like actually it's funny. I was talking to you about this a couple of weeks ago. I went through my YouTube channel and watched some of my first podcasts, and dude, they're so cringy. Like,
yeah. Yeah. I
and
remember
I'm
like
not some
my first
professional
one.
now, but like just being able to like see the growth of, and everyone has this growth, right? No matter how good you are to begin with, like there's always, if you're not growing, then you're not what are you doing, right?
Exactly.
So just being able to go back and see where I was and where I come from, and then or where I'm going, and then set those goals for 2022, like where I want to go.
Yeah.
So I always got
Yeah.
to have that mindset to just keep grinding, man.
So yeah, I'd say because you talk about like the very first episode, and man, I have actually I listened to mine like I think it was on like my 1 year like of doing this,
Yeah.
and dude, it is rough. I mean, because you can tell that I like edited like the shit out of it. I mean, like, because I pretty much like cut out every time like my voice did not sound perfect, or I like changed it, and it was, I think honestly, it took me probably it was like an hour long podcast, but then it took me probably like 2.5, 3 hours just to edit the whole thing,
Yep. Yep.
and now it takes 1 minute. It's
You just upload it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do not. I mean, like, like the very beginning, like of like the recording, and then like the very end, then
Hmm.
I just like throw it in and boom, done. Like that's I do not want to edit at all. I can't.
I feel that. I think just hearing my voice for an hour after hour of like on
I hate
repeat.
my voice. I hate
Yeah,
it.
and that's what I say. Everyone says that. No one in their right mind says, you know what? I listen to my voice and I'm like, dang, dude, that sounds pretty good.
Yeah,
Like even me, like I don't listen to my voice. I'm like, man, I don't like how it sounds. But and then you tell someone that and they're like, oh no, you sound fine. But you're like, really? Do you not hear what I hear?
yeah.
So that's I feel that. I've stopped I do minimal editing now when I do the
Hmm.
podcast. When I do YouTube videos, like that takes up a ton more time of
Yeah, because
editing.
you're like starting to focus more on like the YouTube side of things.
Yeah, I think now that this baseball season's over, my podcast, I was putting the YouTube video audio on podcast, but I've kind of taken a break for the last couple weeks, just kind of focusing on one thing.
Yeah,
And then once, probably in the next couple weeks or two here, probably after the holidays and the new year and all that, you and I got some stuff we're working on that
yes,
we probably
sir.
talk about that in a little bit here whenever you want to, but yeah, but YouTube has been kind of cool, just being able to focus on putting out YouTube content. The videos are like 10-15 minutes, so it's kind of nice, but even that 10-15 minutes would take me a while to edit because you want it to look
Yep,
good, right? You don't want it to just be choppy, because you never know what video you put out is going to pop off and get views. And I've had views with like my views are not, I just started, but like I've had over 2,000 views on some videos, and I'm like, wow, okay, I didn't expect that to do that well. And then I
yeah,
look at the video and I'm like, man, I wish I would have done better, because then it would have been 2,000 whatever people who saw a better quality of video. So that's kind of like my mindset now. Is like I just want to make sure
for
everything
sure.
looks good, so that whenever that video happens to jump into YouTube's algorithm and people start watching it more, I want it to be able to be that product that's well represented, a good representation of what I do. If that if that makes sense.
It does for sure. I mean, because like you said, like it doesn't. I guess like you don't know like who's gonna see your video, so it's almost like you have to give that all effort
Mm-hmm.
because because that one video could change everything.
Yeah.
Because then maybe someday we can start making money doing podcasting.
Yeah, that's the dream. That's everyone's dream, right? Like I said, it's easy to start, but it's harder to keep it consistent and keep making content. Even when you look at your numbers for those who are like just starting, you're like, oh, I want to do a podcast. That's good. I
Do not look at
encourage it.
numbers. Yeah,
Dude,
that's the thing.
so discouraging. You look at your numbers, like, man, I had I've done this before. Like I've had the best interview I think in my life, and I'm like, oh man, the numbers aren't that good. But then I would have a random conversation with somebody, and those numbers do so much even better. And I'm like, wow, I wish I knew why. It's weird. Like sometimes I think I have the perfect interview, and I'm like, this is the best. This is a big name guest, and then I'm like, oh man, what happened?
No,
But,
I can 100% see it. It's I think like my very first episode, it was like I think it was like roughly like 50
yeah.
downloads. I mean, okay, so then like I wish it was listens, not downloads.
Mm. I don't even know the difference, man.
Oh, yeah, so listens, just click it, and then download is if you download it to your phone.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Yeah, like so for like a listen later,
Yep. I
that
think mine
that still
automatically
counts.
just download because I look at my phone. Like
Well, yeah,
when I
and
run
mine
out
has
of
that.
storage, and like my podcast would be like 2-3 gigs. I'm like, man, all this podcast I didn't even know we're downloading. But it's whatever.
Yeah, but I mean, like, but then now it's way it's a little bit higher than 50.
Mm.
We're way higher than 50, and I am so thankful for that. And I have no idea how. It's it's like you said, like just putting out the content.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to keep on doing it.
For sure, man.
And say like, have you found like a certain date where it helps more?
What do you mean? Like
Uh,
gets more
like
reviews?
when you release.
Yeah, like I look at the statistics and stuff, and it tells me like like YouTube and where I on megaphone.fm or whatever where I upload my podcast. It tells me like the best time to upload, the best time to the time when most people listen. I find uploading it in the morning. For me, like I like podcast on the way to work,
Yeah,
and
oh
on the
yeah,
way back
same.
from work. So I look for my podcast in the morning on the way to work. So like I'll upload mine probably it uploads at midnight on the day every day that I'm doing it, but I'll tweet it out like at 8 o'clock in the morning. And
Yeah,
then
same.
I'll do like a reminder, a different reminder later on. Because if you look at like Twitter, like your homepage, you look at one thing and then you look back and it's gone, like it's just
Yeah.
constantly refreshing.
Yep.
So like I can put out 2 or 3 reminders and only not everyone sees all 3 of them, right? Maybe someone only sees 1 or someone only sees 2. But I mean, that's the way you got to get your content out there. Just keep on pushing it.
Yeah.
So the exact time of day, for me, it's just been mornings. It depends, like for videos, like on YouTube, like sometimes the editing takes more time than I want to, and then I'll upload it later on in the day. But for all my content, I try to put it out at midnight, and then I'll schedule it. Like on YouTube, you can schedule it to be published at a certain time, so I'll schedule it for like 8 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the exact same thing that I do. You just got to keep
Mhm.
that content going. So
Yeah, for
like
sure.
as you said earlier that you and I we have something that we're going to
Oh yeah,
start doing.
yeah.
So if you're listening to this right now, so starting for next season,
Hmm.
Francisco and we're going to do a weekly update of MLB, of basically pretty much the whole seasons. And then that will be a whole separate podcast.
Hmm.
And we're just going to crank that out, and it's gonna be fun because like for me, like I watch highlights like of baseball games, but like with this, I'm excited to do this because I'm gonna actually watch games
Hmm.
because like to me like baseball is boring. Baseball is honestly boring, but like everything that happens like off the field and then like all the stories and all the stuff is like why like I watch it. It's like all of like everything around it is why like I love baseball.
Yo, let's unpack that real quick. What
Yeah.
do you mean it's boring?
Boring, dude, it's slow. Baseball is slow. That's just my thing.
So like,
I'm
would you say like you watch it and it's like not entertaining for you, or you watch it and you can see why other people who weren't so invested in
I
it would be
can
bored?
yes, if you're not invested in baseball, it's boring.
Okay.
More than I mean, but like if you are invested, it's kind of like okay, like so baseball is definitely my favorite game to play,
Hmm.
100% because you're playing it.
Hmm.
If you're watching on TV, it's like yeah, like I can watch it, but it's like I would rather watch highlights because
Interesting.
I can't just sit there and just watch
Oh
baseball.
yeah. Oh, I
But
can.
like
I can.
but like at a game,
Yeah.
I will watch certain players.
Okay.
I mean, like over like a team overall.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's just but then I mean like but I can also like enjoy like being like at the stadium and doing all that stuff. It yeah,
That's wild.
for me, yeah, I'm telling you, baseball is way different to me.
That's trippy because for me, like I have my big TV with I'll play it off my Xbox so I can have two games at one time. So I have two games at
Yeah.
one time on on my TV. I'll have another game on my on a different TV, and then I'll
Yeah.
have a game on my computer. So I'll watch 4 or 5 games a night. Like
I can't do that.
and like I watch every Brewers game, like 162 games. I'll watch like 150 of them. For the A's, I'll probably watch like 140 of them. Like still
Mhm.
watch like from start to finish. And then I'll watch teams that I like because I'm a. It's weird, and I think ever since I started like talking about baseball as a whole, I've
Mhm.
started to really appreciate more teams than just Oakland or just Milwaukee.
100%. 100%.
Like I'll watch a ton of the Marlins. I actually write for Fansided for the Marlins,
Yeah.
although I kind of put them on a back burner. But so
Hey,
I
you gotta
watch
do it.
them because well, they have a sweet team. Like their pitching staff's legit. I love Jad Chisholm. I love
Yeah.
all of them.
They're
I'll watch it.
fun.
They're really fun. And I'll watch a ton of like whenever the Angels are playing, like and Shohei is pitching, I'll watch
Yeah.
him no matter what. I watched a lot of Padres baseball because and I think they're a sweet team, and I don't know what happened this past season, but with Bob Melvin as their manager, I think they can legit win a World Series. He's been a really good manager for Oakland,
Hot
although
take.
and yeah, with their financial constrictions, now he's going to a team that spends money, which is nice for him. But yeah, so there's so many team and players that I just love watching that like I can't not watch them on a daily basis just because I
Yeah.
cheer for one team. So and it's weird for me because like I watched the Brewers, and most Brewers fans hate the Cubs, they hate the Cardinals, they hate the Reds. For me, I love the Cardinals, which is weird because I'm a Brewers fan.
Yeah, see,
I don't like the
I
Cubs.
I can't
They're
see that.
the
Like, I mean, like, I'm a diehard Cubs fan. That's just because of like how I was raised.
yeah,
So I can't, I will never say I like the Cardinals.
really. No, it's
The,
crazy because like
the,
for me, like I was hoping they would make the playoffs. I'm like, man, if the Brewers don't win, I would love the
the,
Cardinals to win, which is crazy. Any Brewers fan listening to me would be like, wow, never listening to what he says ever again. But that's just how I am. Like I don't hate teams except the
yeah.
Astros. I hate the Astros. I've never been a fan of the Giants just because they're kind of Oakland Giants had a rivalry just based on being in the same local area.
Mhm.
So I kind of grew up hating them. Other than those two teams, like I don't hate any team. Like I'll cheer for all these teams. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
but strictly focused. Like I hope this team wins. So when the playoffs start, like I have a reason to watch every single game because there's players on each team that I really want to succeed.
Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
same.
and
I'm
managers
I'm a
like Dusty
players
Baker.
over. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
like I hate the
100%.
Astros, but I'm looking at Dusty Baker, and he's been through so much from the Giants to the Dodgers. I'm like, man, I hate the Astros, but I would be cool with them winning just to see
Yeah, for
Dusty get a
sure.
ring because that dude deserves it, right?
Yep.
Um, the Braves, like the Braves are a sweet team, even though they beat the Brewers. I'm like, whatever. Like I'm still gonna cheer for them. They're like the team that as soon as that series is over, I'm like, wow, hope the Braves win. I hope they win it all
Yeah.
because they're a sweet team. They have a ton of talent. So that's just kind of like I think my mindset has changed, like
Yep.
my maturation, I guess, as a
Same.
baseball fan. Um, it's weird because like my sisters, they're the complete opposite. They're like A's, and then my sister lives in San Diego, so she's like A's, kind of Padres.
Yeah, no, I do same. I like players over teams. I mean, except for the Cubs and then the Mariners. But
Hmm.
like I'm like I want players to do well,
Yeah, for sure.
except for Trevor Bauer, but that's it. Every other player, I am 100%. I'm 100%
See,
good for.
yeah, before his whole like allegations and stuff, like he was one of my favorite people to watch, just
Yeah,
because like
same.
he kind of understands like the showmanship of the game that it's lacking in so many different areas.
Yep.
He know, and like he'll just say it like this needs to be changed in baseball, and I'm like, yeah, it does. That's at least someone is saying it. And then after all that came out, and obviously I'm not going to discuss the legal issues because I don't really follow it that much, but prior to that, like, dude, I love Trevor, like, and everyone hated him. Like,
Yep.
man, I would love for him to be on the Brewers. Now I'm glad he wasn't, but
Yeah,
yeah, man.
it's so his brand momentum. So that's how I kind of like started my podcasting ish. So Alec Palmer, so he was their head of marketing,
Mhm.
and he followed me on Instagram, and I like saw like who he worked for, and I was like, oh shit, okay. So then I sent him a DM, and then I was like, hey dude, like I think I'm gonna start a podcast. And then he kind of like helped me through it, and then then he was my very first podcast, and it was it was wild.
That's
And
awesome.
then
He,
now,
he was your first guest, you mean?
yep, he was my very first guy. So it was like, I'm glad that someone who knew like kind of like knew like how to do like podcasts and like the
Mhm.
video stuff, then like the media content. He was on the other side of the mic. So it was just like I felt comfortable like doing it because I knew like that he he could like stop and then like help me do like a certain thing, because like that was back like when I was like editing, so I could. But then like yeah, no, Alec Palmer, like shout out to him, like huge. It was he definitely like helped this whole thing out.
Yeah, that's what's up. It just takes that one person, man, to give you that
Yep.
motivation.
Yeah, and I just enjoy podcasting like that. That's pretty much like how this whole thing is, and
Mhm.
you can't really say no to doing it anymore. It's
Yeah.
it's just like a part of my day, and now it's kind of like it's kind of like it's kind of like therapy, I guess you can say.
It is therapeutic, especially
I
after
think so.
like just being able to talk out like a loss with someone else, it
Yeah,
kind of sucks talking about it. But yeah, I mean, it is therapeutic just to be able to like, man, de-stress by just chopping it up about baseball, in
yeah.
life in general, like whatever comes up, like, it's cool. It is therapeutic. I completely agree with you on that.
Do you ever have any solo episodes like where it's like just you talking?
Um, yes and no. Like there are a couple out there floating around, but several of those were one was for like for like some network that wanted me to be on there, or I had asked them and they said send like a demo. So I'm like, all right, cool. I sent like a 20-minute demo, just me talking. And this is before I even started my podcast now. So I'm
Oh,
like,
really?
man, it was terrible. They sent me an email back like, you got some talent, but how about you try a co-host and then record? And I'm like, yeah, all right, whatever. So then like I just never responded back to them because like
Yeah.
I ended up just starting my own podcast, and I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah. See,
Um,
fuck them.
yeah, no, for sure. I'm like, whatever. And then like one of the guys on their podcast was like, hey, you want to come on my podcast? And I'm like, maybe. We'll see. I know I'm not petty. I'll hop on their podcast, but
It,
yeah,
it's dude, like, you got to do some solo episodes. I personally like, I think they're fun, but
yeah.
I think I only have like two, but
For me,
like they're
like I
so fun.
vibe off people though. Like I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like
for
how
sure.
do I,
It's
I
hard. It's
it is.
tough.
Yeah, I did one
Like
on YouTube. I have like one or two on YouTube, just me talking, kind of ranting a little bit.
yeah, I could not. I mean, like if I like really have something to say, it's tough because I'll just go to Twitter and I'll just tweet it. So I mean, like so it doesn't just like it's just like stick like within me.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't just like sit and then just like rant about it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be, I mean, like I wish I could just like it. It would be hard to do like a solo episode once a week for like 45 minutes, like to an hour. I could not do that at all. It'd be
Mm-hmm.
rough.
You know what I actually did? So the Locker Room app, I used to have a show
Hmm.
on there. I did like 4 or 5 of them,
Oh, really?
of just me talking, and I hated it because like I felt like um I don't know, I just felt like it was not very conversational. It was just kind of me.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a I think now that I've kind of done it for a little bit longer than I had back then. I feel
Yeah.
like if I needed to, I probably could knock one out, but it wouldn't be long. It'd be like 20 minutes, you know? Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
I cannot do that for like longer than 20 minutes. That would be like my
Yeah.
absolute like max.
Yeah, and for me, like I heard this, I can't remember who it was who said this on an interview. It was a completely off topic, on a podcast on a completely different topic. And he had mentioned that he said, you know, if I'm not interesting, I'll bring people on my. Oh man, it's totally spit. He said if I'm not interesting, I'll bring people on my podcast who are interesting, right? So I'm like, okay, that's kind of how I feel like too. Sometimes, like I have things to say,
Dude,
but
same.
like I feel like why not be able to have this opportunity to bring someone else on and then just kind of ask them the questions. And then through those questions, you know, a conversation starts and then you can start talking about whatever, you know? So that's kind of been my mentality.
100%. I do. That's why I have guests. I cannot sit there and yeah, no, I would rather talk to someone whose life is interesting rather than mine, which is not interesting. And that's the
Yeah, I don't know. I
uh,
mean, you got some pretty sweet guests on your podcast too, man. All the minor leaguers that you've had on,
yep. Well,
and for all that, like, yeah, you know, credit to you,
those are
man. You've
my
been crushing
guys.
it. Yeah, you've been
All
crushing it.
all the minor leaguers out there, those are my dudes.
Mm-hmm.
So, Francisco,
Yo,
we're gonna wrap it up a little bit. I have one question for you.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's say that there's a guy at home and he's like, "Oh shit, there's a baseball lockout. What do I do now?" And he's like, "Wait, should I start a podcast?" What would you tell him?
Oh man, this is kind of like 2020 when there's no baseball,
Yep.
and that's kind of when you started your podcast, right?
Yep.
Right when the lockout began or shut down, whatever with COVID. I don't know. I mean, it's now's a good time to get in because you can get a bunch of episodes in before the game starts, where you can
Yeah.
kind of just practice. I feel like a lot of people are kind of hesitant because they don't know how they're going to sound or they don't have the right equipment. And dude, there's people who produce podcasts just on their phone. Like
Yep.
it's something you can do. So I always encourage people to find their like artistic side and like if you want to start a podcast, go for it. And now's the perfect time because let's say you do it like 3, 4 times and you realize, wow, this is so much more work than I actually thought it would take. You know, the prepping, the planning, the finding guests, if that's the route you're going to go. I would recommend doing it and then using this as a great opportunity for a test run. You know, I
That's what
mean,
I'm saying.
I don't know how you feel about that, but I feel like this is a great time because you
No,
can
I
talk about
100% agree with that.
you can talk about so many things right now in baseball, and you can do like for me on my YouTube channel, we're talking about like the worst players ever for each position, and that's like not to like throw shade at them, but you know, everyone talks about like he's the best catcher here in this team, and oh, this is our best outfielder. I'm like, well, let's look at the worst. So I had a guy who comes on and writes for a fan sided for the Brewers, and we talk about who are the worst at each position, and it's a fun conversation because we look at
Yeah.
names. We're like, man, I don't even know. I remember when this person played, and like, oh, I didn't even know he played for the Brewers. And you're like, yeah, he did, and he had a terrible season. Then and he was gone. And, you know, so it's stuff like that where it's kind of baseball related, but it's not really like you can talk about it, and it's kind of content that is not really like because you know so much for sports content like it changes week to
Yeah.
week, but that content's not going to change, you know, because you could throw it back on in a month from now and you'd be like, oh yeah, those 3 names are still the same 3 names, you know, for each position and all that. So that's kind of what I've been doing, and that's if you want to do that route, go over that route. Like, and then on on the flip side, I have a different guy who comes on. He actually now works for the radio station here in Wisconsin. He talks about the 3 best brewers for each position.
Mhm.
So I kind of have one Monday, one on Wednesday, and they just kind of you know go against each other, and like one's the best, one's the worst, and it's just putting out content. Yeah, so I would recommend it definitely. There's no better time than now because if you wait for that right moment, you're just never gonna start.
That's what I'm saying. You got to start that shit now.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start a podcast, you guys can reach out to us. I mean, we will
Yeah.
1,000% help you out. I mean,
Oh, for
there's
sure.
1,000 ways to do it, and they're all
Yeah,
right.
definitely. Yeah, if you guys want me on your podcast, I'll no matter how small or how big, you know. I only charge what's his face?
200 bucks.
Dan, $200. I'm on
Hey,
that Dan Clark route, you know. Give me
I should
that money.
I should start charging. Honestly,
Yeah.
I should start charging. But hey, who knows? Maybe someday. Maybe
It is
someday.
what it is. But I'll tell you this, man. I'm hyped. I'm hyped. Well, first of all, thanks for letting me on your podcast,
Yeah, dude.
Mason. I always appreciate talking to baseball with you. You've been on my show a couple times, so
Yep.
it's great to be on here with you. I'm excited for what you and I are going to be putting out. I know we said I'm not. I don't know. I don't think we set a date exactly when we're going to start.
We just have
So,
ideas. We're just
ideas.
cranking out ideas, but it's gonna happen. Like it will come out. We don't even have a name for the podcast yet. Like
Mm-hmm.
we don't have we don't have anything, but
I'll
except
say
for
this:
ideas.
if anyone listening has a good name for a podcast, shoot Mason or my Twitter's up on here. Shoot one of us a DM because like we're
Yep.
always looking for if you got this sweet name, you're like, man, this is a great name. Someone got to use it. We'll use it, and we'll
Oh,
give you credit for it
100%.
too. Yeah, for sure. We'll give you the credit. We'll be like, all right, so and so came out with a sweet name, and that's it is. That's what we're gonna be calling ourselves. But yeah, man, I'm excited to talk more baseball with you. Like I said, it's all kind of planning and those
Yep.
planning stages, but we'll be putting out weekly content. We'll be having some guests on. Yeah. And like we'll be doing recaps, but at the same time, we'll kind of talk about the general like baseball news, I guess, whatever is the hot topic of the day, of the week.
Yep. We will hit up
So yeah.
all of that, and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, a Cubs fan and a Brewers fan. Who would have
dude,
thought?
I know, coming together, and we're kind of not gonna kill each other, or we might have debates on it. Who knows?
We will. I
See?
know.
Oh, facts.
And then
Well,
A's and Mariners too.
that's what I'm saying. AL West, NL Central.
Mariners are gonna be so good. Oh my goodness.
I'm hyped, bro. I'm hyped. Well, Francisco, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'll talk to you later.
For sure, man. All right.
All right, bye.